47 past the hour, now to breaking news in the legal drama surrounding President-elect Donald Trump. NBC News has confirmed special counsel Jack Smith and his team plan to resign before Trump takes office in January. The New York Times first to break the news. Smith oversaw cases against Trump related to his attempts to overturn the 2020 presidential election and his handling of classified documents. This comes a week after NBC News reported the Justice Department officials have been evaluating how to wind down these cases. With us now is New York Times reporter Devlin Barrett, part of the team who helped break this story. Devlin, great seeing you, my friend. Is there a timeline for when Smith plans to depart?
So I think we have to really think about December as the point where he's going to try to finish the main pieces of his work. Some of this stuff he doesn't have control over, for example. The court cases, he has to wait on a judge's ruling on what are likely to be motions to dismiss charges. He also, when special counsel reports have been issued in the past, they've required intelligence agency review. He can't control those reviews necessarily. So he does have some parts that he's not in charge of. However, his plan, as it's been described to us, is to spend the next month figuring out how to wind down the cases. The month after that, working on fine-tuning whatever his final report is going to be so that he is gone by the time Trump becomes president.
And so that final report, what could we potentially learn from it?
So the final report can be a lot of things, but I think we need to keep in mind that this report may be quite different than, for example, Bob Mueller's report about the Russia investigation or the report that Robert Hur issued about the investigation of President Biden's classified documents. And that's because Jack Smith has filed 2 indictments. So we know what his prosecution decisions are. We know the basis of those prosecution decisions, which is the purpose of those reports. So there's a world in which this report is actually much shorter than the special counsel reports we've been used to seeing lately.
And so in both of the cases you mentioned, the Mueller and the Hur report, they were made public. This one would presumably also be made public?
So Attorney General Merrick Garland has said repeatedly that he intends to make as much of these reports public as possible. So that's the pattern that's been established. None of my reporting suggests that pattern will change here. But again, timing is important because, one, if there are intelligence classified issues that have to be reviewed, that can take time. And if this work pushes into the Trump administration, you could get a different attorney general and different types of decisions being made. And that's when this could lead to a very different outcome.
And so January 20th, obviously a big day. Could the incoming president become president on the 20th? Does he have the authority to make these cases go away? How? So the way that would likely work, if they're still viable cases, live cases, when Trump becomes the president, is Trump could, in theory, instruct his Justice Department senior leadership to issue a motion to dismiss, ask the court's permission to dismiss these cases. I suspect we may see Smith do a version of that before the Trump administration begins. Smith has given himself a December 2nd deadline to sort of decide how he wants to do that.